After my presentation, the press conference of the President will start. And I want to tell you that this is in recognition of your role, both for the democracy in Europe, but also your role in shaping the European Union budget. Let me start with the slides. So my presentation will be accompanied by slides. The goal of this next MFF is a modern, more flexible budget that builds on past successes and responds to the challenges of today, but also tomorrow. You will see that reflected in overall figures, in new spending categories, and in the changes we have made to the structure and principles of the budget. First, every euro from the EU budget must be easy to access for the people and projects it's meant to support, and that is what we mean by simplification. Second, it must be spent on things that matter most to Europeans, where the EU budget can achieve more than national budgets alone. That's what we call being strategic. And third, we need room to respond when the unexpected happens, to act fast in a crisis or shift to new priorities. That's flexibility. That is why we propose an ambitious EU budget for Europe. And we will do all of that while fully upholding the rule of law. I know it's a long-standing concern of this House. The Commission's position is clear. No EU money without respect for the principle of rule of law. That's the framework, the principles behind our proposal. The next MFF will be an ambitious EU budget with a total size of 2 trillion euros. Let me turn to the core question, where and how will we spend the EU taxpayers' money? The next MFF will be organised around three core functions of the EU budget. Support to Member States via national and regional partnership plans. Support to beneficiaries and businesses via the Competitiveness Fund. And support to partners via Global Europe. Those pillars are grouped under three separate headings, together with the traditional heading for administration. This brings us to four headings, which is a much leaner and more flexible structure than today's 7 headings. National and regional partnership plans will bring together reforms and investments under a coordinated framework. They will help us deliver faster and with more impact across our priorities, from cohesion and regional development to agriculture. The plans will not forget our farmers and fishermen. We will ensure that their income is protected by ring-fencing of 300 billion euros for farmers, 2 billion euros for fishermen. And that includes also doubled agricultural reserve. And we are also serious about Europe's social model. The plans will ensure at least 14% of spending for social objectives. We will also ring-fence 218 billion euros for less developed regions. To strengthen Europe's capacity to respond to shared challenges at our borders, we will integrate the funds for borders, security and migration into the national and regional partnerships with a tripling of their financing. Eastern regions bordering Ukraine, Russia and Belarus will receive a bonus in the allocation of funds to reflect their specific challenges, both for the security and for their economy. The second pillar is the Competitiveness Fund. Together with the 10th Framework Programme for Research, the Competitiveness Fund reaches a financial firepower of 451 billion euros, including the Innovation Fund. It brings together our investment efforts across clean tech, digital, biotech, defence, space and food security, backing projects from idea to industrial scale. Let me stress the importance of investments in defense and space. Within the Competitiveness Fund, we will increase by the factor of 5 resources which are available for those objectives, so they will reach the level of 131 billion euros. That will be our contribution of the Competitiveness Fund to defense. As you know, as we discussed already last time, Horizon will remain a flagship with a significantly reinforced budget. In parallel, we are scaling up the Connecting Europe facility to a total of 81 billion euros to complete infrastructure Europe needs to stay connected and secure. That includes substantial investments in cross-border sustainable infrastructure and also, in the context of defense, tenfold increase for military mobility. Finally, with 200 billion for global Europe, we can act faster, respond better, and build deeper partnerships from enlargement to humanitarian aid. And we also set aside up to 100 billion euro outside the MFF ceilings for Ukraine, our most strategic partner. This is a long-term commitment to Ukraine's recovery and reconstruction. Let me add some words about the EU programs that citizens know and value the most. We propose a reinforced Erasmus+, because we believe in young people, in skills, and in a Europe of opportunity. We also propose an Agora EU program, a single, stronger instrument bringing together support for media, culture, democracy and values. This merger of creative Europe and citizens, equality, rights and values will make access simpler for beneficiaries and more visible for our citizens. An important lesson we have learned is that we need to inject some flexibility into the Union's long-term framework to face the unexpected and to adapt to evolving priorities. The next MFF would integrate flexibility at several levels. You can see that on the slide. Through buffers in the 3 main pillars in the form of non-allocated funds and reserves, and through enhanced special instruments which can be mobilized above the ceilings, in particular the flexibility instruments. We are also proposing a dedicated crisis mechanism which would be able to mobilize loans up to almost 400 billion euros. It would be embedded in the own resources decision and triggered by the Council with the consent of the European Parliament. I want to stress that we have heard your position expressed on many occasions on the activation of Article 122. That tool might allow us to work closer with the European Parliament at time of crisis. In addition, we are upgrading our capacity to act in emergencies. A new Union civil protection mechanism with a 5 times increased budget will combine civil protection with health preparedness for a Europe that can prevent, prepare and respond faster and more effectively. This is a direct answer to what we learned during COVID, wildfires and floods. Crises do not wait, and neither can Europe. As you can already see, honourable members, this is an ambitious and balanced package, but let's not forget, starting in 2028, we begin repaying the next generation EU funds. So even a modest increase in spending requires a matching effort on the revenue side. This has always been one of the most difficult parts of the MFF negotiations with the Council. And this time, it will be even more challenging given the growing pressure on national budgets. That's why, building on the principle of stable national contributions, we are proposing to introduce new sources of revenue. Right now, the EU budget is funded through 4 main own resources, traditional own resources, contributions based on the VAT, contributions based on non-recycled plastic packaging waste, and GNI-based contributions, which balances the budget. Our proposal includes 5 new own resources, which you can see on the slide. And as part of this reform, we are simplifying the system, including ending the current corrections to make EU financing more transparent and fairer. These are not abstract numbers. This is about fair and stable financing of the Union, where those who benefit from the single market also contribute fairly to the public good. This is a balanced mix of new revenues, and that does not overburden national budgets, and which is in sync with our policy objectives. I maybe explain. Tobacco, 11.2, corporate, 6.8. These are various adjustments to the current systems with elimination of corrections, including elimination of corrections. ETS 19.6, CBAM 1.4. This is the CBAM without the extension of the scope. As you know, we are also working on the extension of the scope of CBAM. And this is a e-waste, electronic waste, new own resource. You see that we have skipped two proposals, the one which was a statistical own resource on the corporate profits, quite a significant part of the package tabled by the Commission 3 years ago, and we have also skipped ETS2. Also, to be frank, after discussions that we had in the European Parliament and the concerns that you have expressed. Honourable members, this House plays a vital role as budgetary authority, as co-legislator, and as guardian of accountability. Our proposals will strengthen the Parliament's role. More flexibility means more decisions in the annual budget where your voice matters most. And to guide these decisions, we propose a new political steering mechanism, a joint process between Parliament, Council and Commission to shape the allocation of flexible resources each year in line with shared priorities. Let me conclude. Over the past months, I have had many good conversations with you, and I have listened carefully to what matters most to you. You have voiced your concerns about the stability of farmers' incomes, essential for ensuring food security in the EU. You have underlined the importance of predictability for regional funds, which are key for long-term investments. You have stressed the need to protect the European social model, something the EU budget has always supported, and you have made it clear how important the future of European research is, and you are also giving a very strong support to the new own resources. I hope that you could recognise your contributions in today's proposal. But at the same time, I am fully aware this is only the beginning of the negotiations, and I believe that if there is goodwill on all sides, we will get to the successful conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for this presentation. I immediately go to the floor, and more specifically to the MFF co-rapporteurs, and then afterwards the own resources co-rapporteurs. First, Mr. Siegfried Muresan, EPP. Please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Commissioner, welcome to the European Parliament. We hope you brought some official documents with you as well, as this distinguished House has not been officially informed by the European Commission so far of any of the decisions that you have made today. In preparation of today's meeting, the commitments that were made towards the Parliament, that we would receive documents for the honourable members of the House, here the colleagues, to analyse this commitment, unfortunately, was not respected. Thank you for the beautiful PowerPoint and for presenting the full part of the glass. Of course, we have to tell you some things as well today, which are based on the facts that this proposal was prepared against the demands of the Parliament, against the demands of beneficiaries, and against the demands of regions as well. And we also have to underline the fact that the cooperation with the authors of this proposal throughout the process was poor. The quality of information that we have received was not satisfactory, and towards the end of the process it was missing, and we have a different understanding of an honest interinstitutional cooperation between our institutions. Now when it comes to the demands, what do we want as a European Parliament? We want a budget that is aligned with the priorities of the Union, firstly. Secondly, we want a budget which is sufficient and which gives predictability and certainty to the beneficiaries, to research, to farmers, to the local and regional level. And we want a budget that is European. And what is being put forward now is a proposal to renationalize the budget of the European Union, and we believe this would weaken the budget, and we believe this would weaken the European Union as well. This is why in its position at the beginning of May, when we underlined our expectations, we have said clearly that we would reject national regional partnership plans if there is no clear European thinking behind the spending of money, if there is no preservation of the common agricultural policy and of the cohesion policy. And we cannot accept that the budget of the European Union becomes the sum of 27 national, eventually conflicting different agendas. This means that Europe becomes a cash machine. We want a shared vision, a common vision, which balances flexibility and predictability for the next 7 years. We believe that the national regional partnership plans are bad for member states as well, because we would have member states competing against each other. We believe that the national regional partnership plans in this form water down the long-standing priorities of the Union, which are agriculture and cohesion. And we believe that farmers have made very significant efforts in recent years. They faced inflation. They contributed to the transition to the green economy. They faced price volatility. They faced extreme weather conditions. So we believe the support of farmers needs to be increased, not questioned, not decreased. And this is why the position of this European Parliament is for agriculture the same amount until now, adjusted to inflation. And the first question is whether the figure that you mentioned, which is ring-fenced, would match the expectation of the Parliament. Same for cohesion. We're open to change. We're open to the common agriculture policy and to cohesion policy being reformed, being put in line with new objectives. But we are opposed to weakening these two traditional policies. We are opposed to change for the sake of change. We are open to change for strengthening, but we are against change for weakening. The new priorities of the Union are clearly security, defence and competitiveness. On security and defence, we fail to clearly understand what the amounts foreseen would be. We would appreciate some more clarity. And on competitiveness, so far, we see the Competitiveness Fund mainly as an umbrella for merging existing programs. But we believe it needs to go hand in hand with a clear competitiveness strategy. How do we strengthen the single market? How do we make the most of the potential that we have? For external action as well, we want greater transparency, a clearer breakdown of financing to ensure that the EU spending is understandable and accountable. What we see in the Commission's proposal is fewer budgetary lines, less transparency, and basically the Commission deciding alone how it shifts priorities and finances them. We believe that the motto of this budget can be, we're not fixing anything, we will see. But we think this is bad for beneficiaries. We think predictability is missing. When it comes to size, the increases up to the 2 trillion, which sounds well in theory, are firstly inflation, secondly the repayment for Next Generation EU. No penny for the beneficiaries. So we would invite the authors of this proposal not to mislead beneficiaries of EU funds in creating the false impression that there will be more for them. So we made the resources available at the beginning of the pandemic. We ask them back now for the repayment of Next Generation EU. That doesn't mean that we're paying twice. It means that we paid once and we're asking back for the second time, so it's pretty much a zero-sum game. We also think, and this is my last point, we also think that the insertion of the repayment of Next Generation EU into the headings of the budget is a mistake, because we anticipate that next year, the first year, 2028, the European Commission will come and tell us we need to pay more for Next Generation EU because interest rates were higher than we predicted, and there will be less for Erasmus, less for farmers, and so on. This is why we will insist throughout the negotiations that Next Generation EU be repaid in a way in which it has not a negative impact for the headings and for the beneficiaries, for the headings of the budget and for the beneficiaries of programs. All in all, we will have to rewrite many of the proposals made today by the European Commission, and we will have to be very firm on the role of the Parliament. The proposal today is that national plans are agreed via an implementing act. No role for the European Parliament. In the Competitiveness Fund, we also lack the role of the Parliament. In the Global Europe instrument, we lack the role of the Parliament as well. So really, the proposal as made today is a weakening of the Parliament. It leaves us with more questions than answers. It's less democratic, less transparent, less European. There will be lots of work ahead of us if I want to be polite and diplomatic today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next is Ms. Carla Tavares for SND, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak in Portuguese. Em primeiro lugar, naturalmente, e como o meu colega...
Like my colleague Siegfried said, I would like to thank the Commissioner for joining us today, but I am not happy with the way we were notified about the MFF proposal. We need your help so that we can understand the programme. You're looking for something ambitious and simpler, but we cannot see that those goals have been achieved. Siegfried made it clear that we are seeing renationalisation of the budget, losing the European dimension, and that is not what the Parliament called for. We told you clearly, repeatedly, that we can't do more with less. There will be trade-offs. Citizens need more Europe, not less Europe at the moment. Now, I have a few questions for you. Firstly, on the budget, how can this be more ambitious if there is no allowing for inflation and repayments under Next Generation EU? How can we ensure greater competitiveness and the like? We know that Next Generation EU has to be repaid, and that will drain from the budget. You say that this will be a simplified approach, but we think it's more complicated now that there is a national and regional partnership plan. It reduces transparency and undermines democratic scrutiny. Citizens are being punished this way. Looking at the regions now, as my colleague pointed out, what would Parliament's role be in this procedure? This is something that we have raised time and again. We need clarification here. What role will Parliament play in the upcoming MFF? Another point that has been reiterated, the budget is a solidarity instrument, but how can we ensure European solidarity when you have complete renationalisation of European policies? Where is solidarity when we have a proposal that would completely overhaul the different investments? And on the European Social Fund, we know that it's been included, but we don't see clear amounts earmarked. We need that. On competitiveness, the fund is important. The Parliament needs to clearly understand what its role will be when coordinating on the European Social Fund. What will our role be in this area? Now, on common debt, the Draghi report mentioned this, looked at the different approaches. There are expectations from the market to ECB Parliament. We are not happy with how the national and regional partnership plans fit in with Parliament's demands and with what is stated in the Draghi report. We get the impression that this is designed to please member states, no consideration given to the European Parliament. We are key partners, though. We wanted to hear clear proposals here. Commissioner, we are here to work with the Commission. That is our role, our duty, but we will not hesitate to fully flex our muscles and carry out our budgetary scrutiny role as enshrined in the treaties. We will do that. You can count on us to work with you, but we will continue to defend the values of the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we go to the own resource co-rapporteurs. First of all, Ms. Nerudova for EPP. Please.
Thank you. I would like to thank Commissioner Serafin for his proposal on own resources, but, well, I have to say it directly also. It's difficult to comment the proposal if we do not have any further details. And I'm especially mentioning the proposition of the new core. We don't have any details, so it's really difficult for us, and we only have the leaks from the press, and I think it's really extraordinary situation for this House not having this. I welcome that you are trying to find a way out from the years of blockage we are facing. I believe this proposal can be the basis for the negotiations, but we will need, as you can imagine, to have a thorough discussion, especially regarding the suggested corporate contribution. And I think that you can imagine that it's going to be really thorough discussion. I believe that our strategy during the negotiations should follow triple S principle. We would like to have own resources that are sufficient, stable, and enjoy strong political support. If even one of these three elements is missing, we will not be able to reach a compromise. But let's keep in mind that without proper new resources, we will not be able to finance our current and new priorities and repay the pandemic debts. And I would like to have two questions. First, regarding the characteristics of the revenues. Which source constitutes genuine revenue source and would bring really additional money as opposed to member states' contributions? And the other one is about rebates. What is with the rebates? Will they expire in 2027? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to speak in Spanish. Bien, en primer lugar.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to add a couple of comments to what we've heard from my colleagues, i.e. that we need more transparency when it comes to us being able to carry out a better analysis of the proposal, because we have received contradictory information over the past few days. But if we focus on the information that you, Commissioner, have given us this afternoon, then on behalf of the political group, we would like to give a positive analysis when it comes to the own resources proposal. We feel that this is a diversified proposal, especially linking up to the values of the European Union, health, sustainability, etc. But at the same time, it is true that you cannot do more with the same amount. So we feel that we should have had a more ambitious proposal. We know that a proposal was adopted in 2023, the ETS2, and a repeat, and this did have support, budgetary support from the European Parliament recently, and that has been left out, not included in the package. We also feel that we cannot agree with the fact that one idea that we had, a strong idea, which had support from the Commission, has also been dropped, and that is the digital tax. This is something that is working very well in those member states that are already implementing a digital tax. And since the US has left Pillar 1 of the OECD, we feel now would have been the right time to implement this digital tax. From our political group, we would like to stick to the line that the Commission do take a look at and assess this particular tax. There are a series of other issues that we'd like to address where things aren't clear in the light of the information we have. First of all, what is going to happen to the customs duties if the Commission proposes to reduce the contribution or reduce it from 25% to 10%? We've had news along this line. Apparently, this is still an open, a pending issue, and we don't have sufficient detail. And what about the adjustments that you are going to be proposing when it comes to the famous Alibaba rates or the small packages? How are we going to be dealing with these? We have some information about this particular issue, but nothing confirmed. And there was another possible proposal or idea, and that is that we have a common debt package, for example, in the area of defence. Is this an idea that you have dropped because it doesn't seem to be reflected in the document? And then, of course, there is an instrument for rebuilding Ukraine, which is extremely ambitious, but it doesn't say anything about the frozen Russian assets. So we would like to have a little more information as to what is going to happen here on this particular issue, because, of course, there are other related issues as well. We know, of course, that there won't be any checks, so obviously this is something that will have to be addressed later, but perhaps you can also say something relating to the institutional level, and that is, how is the European Parliament going to be involved when it comes to negotiating and deciding on own resources?
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the shadow rapporteurs for both files, and let me be very clear. I will really restrict everybody to 2 minutes because there are also a lot of catch the eye requests, and I'll be sorry to say so, but I'll be very strict. First of all, Mr. Tamás Deutsch for PFE.
Köszönöm szépen, elnök úr.
Thank you very much, Chair. Unfortunately, Commissioner Serafin thought that this is going to be a democratic precedent to talk about the proposal to the European Parliament first, but this was just a press conference. And I don't think that there are any essentially important pieces of information in it. Because when it comes to the figures in the budget, that they are going to add all the debts and increase figures, this is just a kind of creative bookkeeping maneuver. And on the third proposal, this is the worst that I have ever heard as an MEP. All the categories used to be more transparent, more ambitious, and concerning on the interests of the European citizens. And these current ones have nothing to do with it. Maybe there is a real proposal which we are going to get, but whatever we can see now are different. What can we see now? There are two winners only when it comes to the current proposal. One of them is the European Commission, and they want to have the power and strengthen their powers, and this is unacceptable for all the MEPs here in the European Parliament. The other winner is Ukraine. When it comes to the farmers and the regions and the European entrepreneurs and all the citizens who are looking forward to having a real budget, they are not the winners. And this is unacceptable like that. Thank you.
Julien Sanchez, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. Well, first I'd like to say that we are outraged to discover in the press that there were announcements that were made and that we have just been treated as subpar elected members, and we'd like to be respected during these negotiations. Now, as for the presentation, well, it wasn't very precise, it was quite vague, and it was quite simplistic, it was full of slogans, and perhaps even it's full of some lies as well. We're being told that you want simplification. Well, until now, the European Union has actually been doing the opposite, and everyone's been complaining about that, especially the economic stakeholders. They've been talking about the Green Deal, but not just that. And we cannot accept this, especially given what's being done with our money. What is the European Commission doing with those 800 billion for the next generation? It's been used very poorly, very, very poorly, and we're being dragged into huge amounts of debt. And you're thinking about what the spending is before you even look at what the income is. And I think that this just looks like a blank cheque and we reject it. We're being asked to increase conditionality, but we know that this, once again, is a political manoeuvre, and we do also reject that. And you want to be able to do whatever you want. You want to use money that's not going to be allocated, and that's actually counter to the spirit of the text. And we do have real priorities, and we will be paying attention to those. We want action taken when it comes to agriculture. It's our independence, it's our sovereignty, it's our security, and it's also a matter of public health as well. It's under threat by what the Commission is doing, and we are going to defend it. We also want to look at what citizens want, and what citizens want are more security on the borders. They want to be protected. They don't want to see competitiveness slowed down. You have been managing things badly. You're trying to pull new own resources out of a hat. I'm going to be very strict.
Mr. Ruggero Razza, who has 4 minutes because he is a replacement for Mr. Zile, who is shadow on both files. Please, go ahead.
Thank you. I speak in Italian. Grazie.
Thank you, Commissioner. This presentation is obviously a sign of how difficult the day has been, and it's a sign of the work that the College of Commissioners has been doing, and you only finished very, very recently. So sorry if we don't get into the details of all of the numbers ourselves, because we don't have the information about all of the numbers that were given. But what are you saying here? Well, you're giving us some broad lines. What are we worried about? Well, the first thing that we need to understand here is if when it comes to the full total of the resources provided for agriculture and for cohesion policy, we need to understand if this is something that we need to set aside. Is it an additional commitment? Is it in addition to the inflation that we've seen over the past few years, which have meant that we need more investment? Or is it actually going to be a minus figure here? Then on competitiveness, now that's already in those proposals that were made by the Draghi text, but we're trying to understand here, how are they going to work in practice? How is that competitiveness fund going to work? What is its objective? What hope for growth do you have when it comes to the euro area? That's something that we need outlined, and we need to know how it's going to be supported as well. And then there's something that's worrying all of us. This is the point about the new own resources. And they're going to have to go through the approval procedure provided for under the treaty. So that means you're going to have unanimity amongst the member states, because these are new own resources. And that is also something that's very uncertain. Why is it uncertain? Well, it's uncertain because today you are presenting a proposal for an MFF, which is worth almost 2 trillion, but then you have 400 billion of new own resources in that. Now, objectively speaking, on that point, beyond whatever negotiations might happen, we need to understand here is if this is something that is feasible. What are the objectives? And maybe we'd need to know if we're not perhaps moving further away from the Europe of citizens, because the message that's coming across today, now we're only at the very start here of the process, but the message is that they're going to have to put in more. And they're being more and more convinced that Europe is doing less than what it actually could have done. So it's for that reason that I hope that we will have more meetings, and the Parliament needs to be present in these debates, but it hasn't really been borne much in mind at this point today.
Thank you. Before we continue, colleagues, I have, I think, something quite important to say. We see now that at this moment President von der Leyen is giving a press conference, and apparently she is giving more information than we get here. So I'll leave the last remark for what it is, but the first remark, please, colleagues, please. There was a clear understanding that we would get the information, that afterwards the press would get the information, which is, I think, if I remember correctly, you said at the beginning of this meeting. So unfortunately, this is not helping to build up a good spirit, and it's flatly in contradiction with what we agreed upon. You were present there too. I was present, the rapporteurs were present during the Conference of Presidents meeting in Strasbourg. So I think this is a very unfortunate incident.
We have questions of answers.
I understood, and I think my colleagues too, if not, then it's something different, that we would have the information here, and then after that, the information would go to the press. And on top of that, there seems to be a lot more information for the press than there is for us. So there is a lot of goodwill in this house, but you're really emptying the bucket. Anyway, we are grown-up people, we are adult politicians, and we have to do our job. So I pass the floor now to Ms. Keller. Sorry for the interruption, Ms. Keller. And you also have 4 minutes because you talk as a shadow for both files. Please.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner, it is a strange state of affairs. Thank you for being brave enough to present the budget to us. Thank you for your commitment to dialogue over the past few months. We have worked together, discussed matters together. Now, today's announcement does come at a difficult time. That is true. I have a few questions for you. The first slide shows the general ambitions for the MFF, comparing the different MFF programs. Now, Commissioner, we all know that from 2014 to 2020, we had the Juncker Plan 2020-2027. We had the Next Generation EU Recovery Plan. So that comparison is not reasonable. What we are seeing is some decrease, some backsliding on European commitment. We don't have the MFF plus a special plan. So what can you say about that particular point? Turning now to the national plans, I would echo what Siegfried Muresan said quite clearly. The European Parliament opposes these national plans. They are not European in nature. They allow member states to pick and choose different policies. It means we no longer have a shared goal at European level, nor do we have underlying indicators. At this point, I have to say that I'm amazed that the migration fund is being placed in national plans. We're talking about a 10-year timeline. Migratory flows may shift between different borders and member states. What about the ERDF? Would that be in the national plans? What about the Just Transition Fund? It would be a shame if it would be put under the national plans. The member states may often use fossil fuels and emit carbon, and how would that have a knock-on effect? Turning to cohesion now, could you give us more detail? What about local authorities, local stakeholders? How will they be involved in decisions on the Competitiveness Fund? Allow me to thank you for coming up with this idea. It is vital for the EU to invest in strategic priorities. We have the Draghi letter reports. My group is solidly behind this. But what about LIFE? Is that still part of the Competitiveness Fund? This is the LIFE Fund covering biodiversity. Another question. What about the pre-allocation funds? Will there be a specific heading for enlargement? I tried to skim read, but I couldn't find it in your slides. Now, I am pleased to note that Erasmus seems to have been increased by 50%. The smart conditionality, access to funds linked to compliance with European values, all that is being respected. Turning now to financing. Can you tell us a little bit more about debt and a possible common borrowing instrument? We have a bubble, some reference to 395 billion in times of crisis. That's under now I'm moving on to own resources. I'm a shadow rapporteur on own resources. I'm delighted that you've come forward with proposals, but we need you to hold the line in the years ahead. We know that you've backtracked on some proposals from a few years ago. Thank you for the tangible proposals and ambitious proposals.
Rasmus Nordqvist, please.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Commissioner, for coming here today. Last week we were discussing expectations from the Parliament side, and today we discuss on the base of PowerPoint. And of course it's the details we want to know about, because what is actually the direction we are taking with this MFF. I'm going to ask you a question I think will not surprise you, and that is about the green spending target. How do we make sure that there's money across the MFF for climate mitigation, climate adaptation, environmental work, and so forth? Then in line with my good colleague Keller, I want to ask about the nature funding, because, I mean, with LIFE not being present on its own, where is the funding, direct funding for nature? How do we make sure to be able to fund actually the legislation we have decided in EU? And here I think about the nature restoration law. Then I have a question about the Competitiveness Fund, because, I mean, the idea can be good. Of course, it's about what's in it. How is the governance behind it? How to access the money. And I could see in the graphics you showed us that actually decarbonization and clean transition wasn't that big. So is that what there is of money for this big task of making a transition for European industries? Is that also funding for the Circular Economy Act, which we expect a lot from the Commission? So that should be the questions on this. And then my last question is about the rule of law. You mentioned it in a headline, and I was happy that it was one of the first things you actually came up with. And I just want to hear as well about the democratic involvement of NGOs, civil society. If that is part of your understanding of also the rule of law, we see the space for civil society shrinking in many member states. So is that also present in the MFF? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Rasmus Andresen, also from the Greens. Please.
Yes, thank you so much, also from my side. I have one question which goes on the social polarization in our societies, because I really think that we need to ensure that the MFF at the end delivers also for ordinary people, and I would like to get a better understanding of the minimum share for social objectives you are proposing, as I understand, and especially now, and you had been quite explicit about it, now where the ETS too had been left out on how the Social Climate Fund will be financed in the future. And thirdly, on the issue on the corporate levy. First of all, despite other groups here in the House, the Greens think that also the corporate sector, the big business, so the bigger part of the sector can pay a bit more and can also contribute a bit more to the budget. But what I would like to understand is the design of it, meaning who will pay this levy at the end, or who will be included in that, and more explicitly, what about the big tech companies who have a legal presence in the EU? Will they be part of the design and calculated into it or not? And are we sending the message to our companies that the European companies have to pay more, but big business, big tech, the big tech companies will be let out? So if you could provide a little bit more details on this, then I would at least become a little bit more glad than what I am now.
Thank you. Next is for the left, Mr. João Oliveira.
Obrigado, Presidente.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I'm going to be speaking in Portuguese. Commissioner, we have listened carefully, and we do agree with the criticisms from previous colleagues as to the lack of transparency and the way in which this proposal has been prepared. There's been a lack of information for the European Parliament. The presentation that you have given us does give rise to certain concerns. Firstly, it is a proposal which seems to be based on the objectives of multinational companies and economic groupings. For example, in particular, the defence industry, military industry, because we've seen that there are specific allocations for those sectors, and then there are other areas or headings which have been withdrawn in order to focus more funds on these military and defence objectives. And what about the social and economic problems that are facing poor people? We've got things like the quality of life, the fight against poverty, cohesion, housing. None of this seems to find its place in your proposal. Thirdly, we see this as a proposal for a budget where the Commission is going to be pulling the strings and where it's an instrument they're going to use to impose conditions on the Member States, rather than trying to rebalance the asymmetries and all along the same lines. And the idea is to use simplification as a way in hiding what you're going to try to do with the funds, i.e. to try and allocate more funds to military and defence spending rather than on agriculture. So once again, this is a draft budget, if you will, which runs counter to distribution of the budget and which is going to aggravate the discrepancies between the member states. You referred, when it comes to own resources, you referred to tobacco and electrical waste. So the poorer countries are perhaps going to have to make a larger contribution than the richer, better off member states. It is a budget that has nothing to do with the real priorities of our citizens, quite the contrary, in fact.
This is Mr. Alexander Jongbloed, ESN, for 4 minutes as he speaks on both files. Please.
Ja, vielen.
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner.
Thank you. I'm quite pleased by today's debate. Most people here are looking to increase the EU budget. We want a sleek, streamlined budget. You're all looking for more and more. Now, Commissioner, the chaos we've seen today demonstrates how little agreement there is within the Commission and between Commission and Council. No one knows where these funds are going to come from, and I think that is good news. Now, you didn't give us any detailed figures because you probably didn't have reasonable figures available. You gave us a few percentages, but I can't tell whether this is actually feasible in practice, whether this is sufficient funding to cover needs in coming years. Now, what do you want to change when it comes to own resources and tax? You talked about tax on electric waste and tobacco. If those are our major goals to raise funds, well, I'm quite optimistic that this won't work out. But I do wonder why you have picked those two particular industries. Are you looking for sectors that are unpopular amongst the general public? They don't have major lobbying behind them, so people won't bat an eyelid if you look to tax tobacco and electronic waste. That's not right, just picking on specific sectors. Pick on them because you think they are unpopular and there'll be less pushback. So why did you pick those two particular sectors? Moving on now, you talked about the crisis mechanism, some 400 billion to be made available in close cooperation with the European Council. I'd like to know more about how the voting will work there. We are cautious. We would note that the Commission has rejected Parliament's role here, and I think the idea that announcements are made to the press before Parliament, I think it is a joke what is happening here. I want the Commission to produce a report in coming days, give us detailed figures, the type of mid-term financial planning you're dealing with. This type of announcement doesn't help us. We don't have any sort of basis for sensible, rational debate. Did we need this meeting, this show here today? We don't have anything tangible or detailed to get to grips with substantive debate. It really is appalling what we see here today.
I pass the floor now to Nicolas Helpst, the co-chair. Please, also for 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. There's a lot to say, especially from the control point of view. Commission pretends to still act under shared management, but responsibility is shifting completely to the member states under the financing not linked to cost model. And I'm specifically concerned that the proposal will be a step back in terms of protection of EU financial interest, especially when I see at the so far only leaked regulation. In Article 52.4, you state that the audit authority, and I quote, the audit authority is not expected to verify the underlying costs of the operations for the purpose of its audit work. That would mean that your proposal means that EU funds will be less strictly audited than the national funds. And I don't think that the taxpayer should be less protected on European level than on national level. And really, I have to say that the discharge right and the control rights of the European Parliament is something that we really fought for, and we should not give it away that easy.
Thank you. Commissioner, I think there are a few questions and remarks to be answered. Please.
Thank you. Let's start maybe with points of order. So I noticed that a disappointment that I didn't come here with the package of the documents that have been adopted just adopted by the college. I think when I came here, they were still not published. I really immediately left the college room to join you and to be with you and to tell you firsthand what was discussed at the college and what we have approved as the College of Commissioners. Maybe by now they are published, that I'm not sure, I didn't check. And then also I need to say that when it comes to the sequence of presentation, I believe that we have started the presentation and I have finished my presentation before the President von der Leyen started her press conference. And I think also this is an obligation of the Commission to communicate with you, but also with the public. So that's the 2 points of order that I would like to make. Now, let me start with the own resources. There was a number of questions in relation to the own resources from many angles, and it's true. I have never been hiding the fact that it's not going to be easy to build a package which yes, on the one hand, is going to provide sufficient revenues that would allow us to cover not only NGEU debt, but also to contribute to financing of the new priorities, new challenges that we have. I have never been hiding that fact. On the details, because I think there were, you were asking also about more details. Tobacco. On tobacco, we are in a situation in which some new products are on the market. There is no common harmonized rules at the European level. If we talk about e-liquids, liquids for liquid, I don't know how it's in English, but vapoter, quand on vapote. If we talk about also new products, there are no harmonized rules at the EU level. And I know that my colleague, Wubke Hoekstra, he is asked even by the member states. 16 finance ministers have approached the Commission, asking the Commission to table a proposal on harmonization of taxation for tobacco, including those new products. So that is going to be the starting point. We are the proposal of Hoekstra on the tobacco products, and we assume that 15% of the revenues from tobacco excise duty of EU member states could become a new own resource. It will be applied on country-specific minimum rate for manufactured tobacco and tobacco-related products. CORE. So on CORE, Corporate Resource for Europe, what I can say is that here the challenge was indeed to narrow the scope. And when it comes to the scope, we talk about companies that, not small and medium-sized companies, we talk about the companies with a revenue of 100 million euros and above per year. This is and it's around a bit more than 20,000 of companies in Europe. They are benefiting from the single market the most. And of course, it is also we're talking about the companies operating and selling in the European Union. So this was one of the questions whether also the companies that are not registered in the EU, they will be covered or not. So that's about CORE. On CBAM, I have mentioned already that we have calculated the revenue based on the current scope of CBAM, but as you know, also the discussion is ongoing on the extension of the scope of CBAM. And what I would like to say also in the context of revenues of the budget, we will be certainly looking also into the fees. There was a question on parcels. I think tomorrow there is a trilogue. Also the position of the Commission in view of this package adopted today will be presented also during this trilogue. But we are also working, and I think it is reflected in the documents adopted by the college. We are also working on ETIAS, so on the, let's say, a fee for people from outside of Europe that want to visit our beautiful continent, European Union. So, and I'm sure it's not that debate will go on, because as you can see, the new own resources package plays absolutely critical role in delivering on the next MFF and on the common ambitions that we have. There were questions also on the national and regional partnership plans. Their structure, I think it's what I didn't mention at the beginning, but I should have mentioned. Indeed, we have, as part of that package, we also have a separate legal basis for the agriculture, for the Common Agriculture Policy, for European Social Fund, for Regional and Cohesion Funds, for fisheries, and also for Justice and Home Affairs part. So it means that I understand that we understood that this is one of the key concerns and demands flowing also from the European Parliament. And when it comes to the financing, I think I have mentioned ESF, so that it's earmarking. It's a target. It's a target. It's a target of minimum 14%. That could be translated to around 100 billion euros. I'm not sure if I have mentioned that, but that's how it could be translated, to around 100 billion euros. And when it comes to, well, I mean, there is this strong argument that it is about renationalization. I think this is debatable, to be frank, at this point, because we really need to find the right balance between the flexibility on the one hand, flexibility which is also needed at the national level, at the regional level, and setting a framework together at the European level. One thing which is clear is that we need to provide for the funds have to be spent on the European priorities. That should not be questioned, and that would be also strengthened, that dimension, by the steering mechanism to which I was referring in my opening remarks. But then also the whole framework I was sharing with you, ring fencing for our farmers. Ring fencing, what is the logic of ring fencing? In the current common agriculture policy, we have the first pillar, direct payments for our farmers. We have the second pillar, which is a mix of tools and instruments that constitute an income of farmers, and also tools which are more linked with the development of the rural areas. So everything which is about farmers' income, be it in the first pillar, be it in the second pillar, it will be ring-fenced. It will be guaranteed, also in the future MFF, that the incomes of the farmers will be guaranteed. This is exactly the same logic when it comes to our fishermen. It also, everything which is about the direct income that our fishermen receive now is going to be ring-fenced and guaranteed in the future MFF. And the purpose is exactly that, to avoid uncertainty, to avoid unpredictability, because we know how important it is for farmers, for fishermen, to rely on the direct payments and other direct income support which flows from the EU budget. The same logic of finding the right balance between the flexibility but also providing predictability is behind the ring fencing of the resources for the less developed regions. I have mentioned the amount. It's 218 or 16? 218 billion euros. That is the amount guaranteed for the less developed regions, which, as we all know, are at the core of the cohesion policy, and they should remain at the core of the cohesion policy, because the purpose of the cohesion policy is first and foremost the convergence. And the legal basis, and that I have said so. Legal base, which I also believe is important for all the policies I have mentioned, that will be financed through the national regional partnership plans. But in particular, I know also for this House, because once you have a legal base, I think you will also have an opportunity to engage various committees and various sectorial committees into the debate about the future of the policies we are talking about. Defence in space. I was also, this was present in one of the questions, that I was not precise enough. So I will try to be more precise. Defence and space, that is a separate window in the Competitiveness Fund. And in that window, we are going to have a bit more than 130 billion euros for defense and space. But also, let's be frank and let's be honest. Many of the projects that we have on mind that are related to space, they are also about increasing our security. We talked about it a week ago. I was talking about the European Starlink, Iris Square, that is going to be financed through this window. That is, of course, about communication, but it is also about our security. And we have witnessed that just a few months ago in the context of the war of Ukraine. The same refers to another satellite-related project, which is about the satellite surveillance system, where we are finalizing right now the scoping exercise on how that project should look like. So 130 billion euro in the competitiveness fund in this window, defense and space. That is the increase by the factor of 5. Then the second source of financing for defense is Connecting Europe facility. In Connecting Europe facility, we have right now for so-called military mobility. We all know what it is. It is about dual-use infrastructure. We also know that in the last few weeks, NATO carried out a very detailed assessment of the needs, identified 500 hotspots, missing links when it comes to military mobility. So in the current MFF we have 1.7 billion euro. In the next one we are going to have 17 or 18, factor 10, 17 when it comes to military mobility. And the third source of financing, we're also opening up the possibility in the context of the national and regional plans. And we know it. You are working right now on the midterm review of the cohesion policy. And please note that within the framework of the national and regional partnership plans, we have also this opportunity. Here, I'm not able to predict to what extent member states are going to use that possibility, as I'm not able to predict which member states are going to apply for a loan from SAFE. But this is one of the priorities, and it should be incentivized. Talking about SAFE, talking about loan facilities, of course, defense efforts could also be financed through that catalyst mechanism that will be built also, so a loan facility that will be built also in the national and regional partnership plans. Defense, but also housing. And the truth is that when it comes to housing, and it was one of the questions, the fact that we are going to have, in a sense, a common pool of resources, because the national and regional partnership plans, they will, with ring fencings, with no, it's not earmarking for ESF, for social. It's targeting. Targeting for social, that it will be one pool of resources, and in the case of housing, we know this is somewhere in between the social policy and infrastructural development. So that could be, in my view, also better covered by this new structure. Yes, there were questions on rebates. Yes, I can confirm that the proposal which we have which I'm presenting today, I hope it's published by now, but this is available. That proposal provides for the abolition of all the rebates. And also I should say that we have looked also in other ways within the current tools that we have in the own resources decision, how we can increase the revenues. That's why we are looking, for example, at the collection costs, the impact of the decreasing of the collection cost from 25% to 10%. Yes, it will be more revenues to the EU budget. But we also looked into various hidden correction mechanisms in the VAT own resource, in also the plastics own resource. The purpose was very simple, to make sure that we have a credible and balanced package. And that was set one of you. For the own resources package to have any chances to fly, it has to be balanced. Yes, I am aware there are own resources that are disliked by a certain group of member states, also because some of them are regressive in nature. There are own resources that are disliked by another group of member states, and I think that in that group you will find those who don't like core. But the proposal that we put on the table has to be balanced. It cannot be only about poorer member countries, or it cannot be only about the consumers and households. It needs to have also to balance a dimension of corporate sector and the dimension of more affluent member states. This is the logic behind the own resources proposal. On the question of the digital tax and other potential ideas, yes, they are not part of the package, but I will not forget that we have already a reflection on this issue, and I think that for sure we have still some time before the negotiations are over. We will continue to analyze, as I told you at the very beginning, we will continue to analyze other potential options, and if we will find a good workable solution, we will not hesitate to complement the package presented today with those other options. On Ukraine and rebuilding of Ukraine, yes, but please keep in mind, it doesn't say anything about the Russian frozen assets. Please keep in mind that we are talking here about a proposal that, if I hope it will be the case, will enter into force in 2028. I believe, this is my guess at this point, that the question of the immobilized assets might be on the table well before that date. Also because I know that in this year we have in the EU budget G7 loan for Ukraine. We have also quite a lot when it comes to Ukraine facility, but I know that it will be less in the next year budget, and it will be much, much less in the 2027. So the issue of Ukraine financing might be on the table even before the new MFF enters into force. And this mechanism is up to 100 billion euros. We are not able to predict right now what will be the financial needs when it comes to the reconstruction of Ukraine. There was also a question of enlargement. So here I would like to stress, yes, we have enlargement, the Europe window in the enlargement geography, that's how we call it, not window, in the global Europe. It provides for an increase of around 40%. And here, when it comes to enlargement, Ukraine is treated on par with other pre-accession countries. But these are, we can say, predictable expenses. Pre-accession assistance. Reconstruction, that's why reserve. Reconstruction, there is a lot of unpredictability around this category, but we have to be ready for that. Because we know it is one of the challenges which is in front of us. Yes. Local stakeholders and regional authorities. I think that I know that tomorrow Raffaele Fitto will have the presentation on the, at least that's what he told me. Maybe, I hope nothing has changed. We'll have the presentation on during the Regi committee. And it was very important for him to ensure, I should say, the status quo when it comes to the engagement of the regional and local authorities in the design, planning, and implementation of the regional plans, which will be called chapters, if I understand correctly, right now within the national and regional partnership plans. That was also very important for me, and I was not hiding that the question of the regions was absolutely critical from my perspective. I believe that the regions are the most reliable partner of the EU institutions, and also the most, I would say, credible advocate of the European project. And we cannot, we need to work together with them also in the future. So that, I believe, is in short in the proposal that we are presenting. But I think the details on the modalities, it will be for Rafael Fito to share with you. I would like to stress that indeed this package, it is a package in which almost each and every member of the college has his own contribution and his own legal text. So I was in charge for the new own resources. I was in charge for the performance regulation, to which I will move right now because there were also questions related to it. And I was also in charge for interinstitutional agreements and the MFF regulation. So before I move to the performance regulations, smart conditionality. It is a complicated debate, but it was indeed important for us also, for me personally as well, because I know that I was talking to many of you, and to be frank, not only from Renew, also from the EPP, also the Socialists, also the Greens, to be frank, that it is important to ensure smart conditionality in the next package. So what we offer, it will be such an opening, because we know that, in case of when the funds are frozen, at a certain point, I will finish soon. Yes. Go ahead. When the funds are frozen, at a certain point, they are also decommitted. We have witnessed that last December in the case of Hungary. 1 billion euro was decommitted. If nothing changes when it comes to meeting the requirements of the rule of law, then, based on the conditionality regulation, another billion would be decommitted at the end of this year. So now those resources are decommitted. We want to open, that would be subject to further discussions, a possibility to make a partial transfers to directly managed programs, and in particular, the support for the NGOs. So, as you know, one of the programs, and here I move to the questions from the Greens, one of the programs is going to be Agora, and in Agora, that will be the key tool to support NGOs through the EU budget. In Agora, we are also going to have a current SURF, and we also foresee for doubling of funds for Agora. Agora, which is culture, media, and SURF. We propose to double funding for that. And SURF is one of the examples of the directly managed programs to which we could transfer the committed money, the committed from, in case indeed the conditionality regulation is used, activated. On the green transition, yes, I mentioned, I think, explicitly the green transition window in green technology, green transition, but also decarbonization window in the climate fund. It is together with the resources of the innovation fund, which is going to be financed by the by the ETS revenues, ETS1 revenues. It will be 67 billion euros, I think, in this window. But you should also remember about CEF. CEF, energy. We are going to have on energy, on energy part of CEF, 30 billion euros. This is an increase by factor of 5. And then also talking about indeed mainstreaming, climate and environmental mainstreaming. The proposal of the performance regulation foresees for 35% climate and environmental target, but it has to be differentiated. It will be differentiated between the various spending programs. It's a very ambitious one, and we also have to be realistic. That's why indeed this target that combines climate and environmental objectives is going to be at the level of 35%. So I believe also that it will also incentivize investments in energy infrastructure, in renewable energy, also within the framework of the national programs. Question on the social mainstreaming, I think that I have already answered. There were many other questions, but I presume that we need to give a chance also to other MEPs to answer.
We will indeed have a second round now for, as we call it, Catch the Eye. 1 minute each. We start with Carlo Ressler, EPP. Please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Many questions have been opened. Not much has been presented, but even this limited amount really shows that it will be very much difficult to get the required 361. But let me get to my questions. The MFF has clearly demonstrated that it has been a big mistake to include volatile and unpredictable interest costs inside the budget headings. Now, the idea is to repeat the same mistake, if you can perhaps clarify this point. And secondly, if national plans become a central delivery tool in the next MFF, how does the Commission plan to ensure proper involvement of the European Parliament? But not only this, how do you really ensure to apply other lessons learned from the RRF experience? Thank you.
Next is Jean-Marc Germain, SND, please.
Yes, I will speak in French. Pardon, mais je vais être un...
Well, apologies, but I'm going to get right to the point because I've only got a minute. But I'm sure you'll have understood from what others have said that we reject the budget. We're going to fight for changes and we'll have the majority. Well, what are we going to change? We want to change the philosophy. I'm not going to go back over all of these ideas here. It's a destructive idea of having this single check here, and you're going to get rid of 3/4 of what represents Europe because you've got the 200 trillion on the one hand, and then it's going to be less on the other side because you've got a kind of blackmailing as you go through, because you've got Romania, for example, where you want to cut the cohesion funds because there's the excessive deficit, but that's going to apply to other countries as well. Now, what I want to say is that when we reject this today is that, well, the only new thing today was this slide here, and it says there's not going to be €1 more over the next 7 years for the next budget, because it was 1.3% and it's going to be 1.15%. And then that means there is no priority. There's no way to do more for defence and more for competitiveness without having a negative impact on social aspects and the environment. So that's why we reject this.
Bunjimea, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak in Spanish. Lamento muchísimo.
I must say, I regret the conditions that this hearing is being held in, Commissioner, because it's not really much in line with, or it is in line with what we've seen over the past few months. Lots of leaks and no information. We don't have one single official document. We don't have a breakdown of the figures. We don't know the true source of the new own resources you're proposing. Basically, we have no information, and this is a lack of respect towards the European Parliament, and we as members of the European Parliament who represent the citizens. And you are going to need the majority of the members of this House to support your proposal. 3, no to a new Next Generation 2. No to the merger of programmes, especially if this is to the expense of the CAP, etc., and no to national envelopes. Obviously, we want simplification, but there's a big no when it comes to not involving the European Parliament. If we still continue to link projects to investment, what about the farmers? How can we tell them that if their governments are not going to move forward with reforms that they won't get any money under the CAP? That's not possible.
Negrescu, SND, is following, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was also paying attention to the statements of President von der Leyen. She spoke about an ambitious budget that is supposed to deal with today's realities, but it doesn't seem to be so. So I also underline what colleagues said. We don't consider this MFF as being fitted for the future, and we don't believe this matches the expectation that citizens have today. Indeed, they want simplification, but they also want predictability and clarity when it comes to the funding, and this is why farmers were today in the streets in front of the European Commission. Local authorities want indeed to have integrated access to resources, but they don't want the centralization of the funds in the hands of government that might do bad reforms. Indeed, we want conditionalities, but the conditionalities should be transparent, and of course reforms that are fitted for people. Indeed, we support the increase for Erasmus, but we want to make sure education and skills is dealt with in a coherent way. Indeed, we want the competitiveness of Europe, but we want to make sure that the vulnerable regions and smaller companies have access to those respective funds. So details are important, Commissioner, and this is what we want. We want information, we want clarity, predictability, we want simple tools, but in the same time, we want a European budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Hohlmeier, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I am looking at the draft presented today. There is an attempt made to skew the balance of power between the institutions towards the Commission. What do we mean by ring fencing? Well, a chunk of a budget or fund can be shifted to a different envelope without input from Parliament. We have legislation covering these policies, but we will not have a reliable basis and predictability for financing. What this means is that reforms will be required, but we won't have commensurate financing, and we won't have transparency between Commission and Parliament. Now, we will take a very close look at all proposals. National plans mean a top-down approach. In the past, governments set their own priorities. When it came to the different priorities, they adopted their own legislation, decisions taken in regional parliaments. Now, government officials will work with Commission officials, come up with national plans. Perhaps the Parliament might express wishes and be consulted. But really, I think we are going to have to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. I'm not terribly enthusiastic.
This is Ms. Carberry, please.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner, firstly I want to welcome the continued commitment to the programmes like Erasmus Plus and the Connecting Europe Facility for Transport and Enhanced Resilience and Preparedness Fund. That said, I have serious concerns at this stage about the proposal to merge the CAP into a broader national and regional partnership plans and not to adjust it in line with inflation. While we must take time to digest these new proposals, I fear that this change threatens to undermine what makes the CAP effective, its common coordinated nature. And while you say that this MFF will ensure a ring-fenced standalone CAP, at this stage I fail to see how this will be delivered with the proposal to merge and renationalise elements of the budget. So, Commissioner, as noted by Siegfried and many colleagues, with merged budget lines but no additional clarity and less transparency and predictability for our farmers and all citizens, the real work has to begin now. But finally, you also noted that the new own resources package must be balanced, but I do not believe that that is the case, especially with the corporate taxation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Geisel.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. You're quite right. The Commission's budget needs urgent reform. However, I don't believe that Next Generation Europe and national and regional partnership plans can be the blueprint to follow. The current recovery and Resilience Facility was a type of enabling act to allow the Commission to enter into deals with Member States, force through the Green Deal and use the lure of money to interfere in Member State policy. This is undemocratic because the Commission does not have democratic legitimacy. It is forcing its will on democratically elected governments. Moreover, parliamentary right of scrutiny is being eroded. Take a leaf out of Helmut Schmidt's book. His first government statement talked about continuity and consolidation. In Europe, we have a single market. It's not, the EU is not a supranational government or an ideological vanity project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Nils Uzakos.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I've got one very narrow question. You mentioned poorest regions of the European Union and regions bordering Russia and Belarus. And obviously, I'm trying to get the same information as anyone in this room, that some clarity and details. Does it mean that you are talking about border regions in Poland, Baltics and Finland? Do you mean defense and security, or do you also mean support for social hardship or economic losses? Because these regions are obviously suffering a lot due to the war. How large this support could potentially be? And what would you prefer as a better solution, support to the border regions through national governments, or do you prefer to help regions directly? Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Furet, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, thank you very much. Commissioner, I would just like to remind you and remind some of the colleagues in this room that there is a majority when it comes to our left-wing adversaries. We have that majority over them, so please don't feel obliged to come up with a left-wing budget. And thank you for being so kind, because you have tried to make us believe that things could be worse elsewhere.
Next is Mr. Lewandowski, EPP.
Thanks. I feel some solidarity with Commissioner Serafin for some reasons. Winning principle in his presentation is Brussels knows best. That is clear inspiration of RRF. And contrary to the position of Parliament, we have two big spots and two smaller. One not mentioned by you, that is administration. But what is striking for me in this bigger spot is, for the first time, agriculture is much bigger than cohesion. That could mean that cohesion is limited to really the poorest regions, and western part of Europe is losing eligibility. Here is my first question. And second, in traditional cohesion, we have co-financing, national co-financing. In RRF model, there is no co-financing. How it is with cohesion in your model? There are, of course, voluntary contributions by member states, but it should be RRF. That means no co-financing.
Mr. Aftias, please.
Dear colleagues, I will talk to Greek. Κύριε Επίτροπε, μπαίνω στην άμυνα.
Commissioner, I am here, and it's your obligation to not use citizens' money to arm an enemy of Europe. I'm thinking here of Turkey. It doesn't make sense that you finance Turkey so it can be part of our defence, because it's threatening Greece. It's asking for half of the Aegean Sea. It occupies half of the island of Cyprus, and then you're actually saying that this is to help us feel safe. So I want your answer today, not tomorrow or the day after. That is what the Greek people are asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Van Brugge, please.
Thank you very much. Commissioner, I'm very glad to see that you focus strongly on competitiveness. If the EU wants to remain competitive, we need to do everything in our power to keep our businesses here and help them grow and flourish. It surprises me, therefore, that one of the new own resources that you're proposing, the core mechanism, would come down to a tax on our businesses. We want to strengthen our businesses, and putting more financial strain on them is the last thing we should do, and goes against what the Competitiveness Fund aims to accomplish. Could you elaborate on your decision to propose this tax and how this will help our competitiveness in the future? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Haji Pantela.
Yes, thank you for giving me the chance. I'm very disappointed with the presentation. There is no breakdowns, no additional information in this presentation. When all of us will leave this room, people, they will ask us questions. They will ask us information. What can we say? We can say nothing. It was just 10 figures. Additionally, there was no respect in the Parliament because you couldn't coordinate with the President of the European Commission and you had the presentation at the same time. You mentioned you will tax the businesses of Europe. We are going to tax businesses of Europe at the time when they are attacked by the US, when there are tariffs imposed in the US, and we are saying we want the European companies to be competitive. You present us as a huge fund for competitiveness. How is this going to be spent? And finally, we heard a lot of increases, five here, 5 there. However, the budget is not really increases, so we are going to have the decreases.
Next is Mr. Lupo, S&D. Please.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I would also say that it was a very disappointing proposal as well for the MFF. It's not an option, and this is not the MFF that Europe wants. So, I don't have a technical question, but rather a political one. Does the Commission have the will? Is it open to listening to requests from the European Parliament and open to making changes to the proposal?
Thank you. And last but not least, Mr. Novakov, EPP, please.
Thank you, Chair. The fact that this budget was presented on the late afternoon, almost on the last working day of the Parliament, is not going to help us solve this issue. And I feel sympathy to you, just like I hope that Mr. Fitu will face mercy tomorrow when everybody understands that the Commission, the cohesion policy, just simply receives less than the current programming period. There is no other words to describe that. And at the moment there is full of farmers who are protesting outside. I don't want to see a square full of mayors protesting for their cohesion policy. So how do you evaluate this? What we have to tell people when we fly back tomorrow to our constituency? Why we are decreasing funding for regions? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner, please.
I think it's good to start with what I have said at the very beginning. Yes, this is the proposal of the Commission. This is an opening of the negotiations. And also listening to you here today, I'm aware that there will be issues that we would need to discuss. And I'm also, I also predict that when I'm having the presentation in the Council, and it will be on Friday, if I'm not mistaken, where I will meet the ministers, they also will raise a number of issues that they would like to debate. And I also understand that you are not fully satisfied that not each and every detail was presented neither at the beginning, nor I didn't give every potential detail in my in answers to your questions, but it's a big package. So we are going to study it together, and we are going to talk about it together for many, many months, to come. And I want to declare my openness, my readiness to engage, and openness also in the context of, because I believe it is in our common challenge. There was the issue of reforms and investments raised. You know, this has been part of my mission letter. This has also been part of the political guidelines of the President of the Commission, so it's not a secret. That logic that is indeed present in the NGEU, that it is going to be part of the MFF, next MFF proposal. But what I would like to stress, that it is extremely important also from my perspective that we emphasize the importance and we respect the principle of partnership. that it is not top-down. It's not like my previous boss said, Brussels knows best. I don't believe that Brussels knows best. To be frank, I believe that sometimes at the regional level they know better than in the capital, quite often, not to mention Brussels, what they really need. So we have to respect the principle of talk about reforms and investments. It cannot be a top-down approach. It cannot be Brussels knows best. It should be a grassroots approach. It should be indeed based on the common needs. And, I'm reassured. I talked also to the regions, and they will be part of that reforms and investments. They have ideas on what sort of reforms they have to implement. I talked to the marshal of one of the regions of Poland that is developing right now quite significantly the part of the industry which is about green technology. And he needs, and the regions in Poland are in charge for the schools, the technical schools. They know they need to adapt, they need to reform the system at the regional level to be able to meet the requirements of the labour markets. So this is the sort of the reform which would be completely sensible and that could be supported with investments from the EU budget. So that is one point that I wanted to make, and indeed I'm fully aware that the question of what reforms, it will be one of the issues also discussed very thoroughly, if I may say so, with the Member States, but also here with you, with the European Parliament. Now on the role of the European Parliament, I mentioned that, so I will repeat. Yes, there is this, we are changing, if this proposal passes, we change the balance between the multi-annual budget and the annual budgets. We are going to have much more substantive annual negotiations. Many of you, if not all of you, know what I'm talking about because you participate in the annual budgetary negotiations. You know extremely well how narrow is the room for manoeuvre in annual budget negotiations. With more flexibilities that I have presented, we open the space for much more substantive engagement, much more substantive also debate on setting the political priorities for subsequent years. But, and that is, I believe, also the way to influence the way in which the money in the national and regional partnership plans are going to be spent. But also, and this is, I think, the difference in respect to the situation we had, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and this is, I think, also the reason why I came only that late today, that we will have for the national and regional plan also the set of legal acts on the common agriculture policy, on the regional and cohesion funds, and on the European Social Fund, and they will be discussed with the European Parliament. This is also the way, your way to influence how the national plans are going to look like. And I want to I did mention administration in my in the presentation, so it's not fair that I didn't. And then again, one of the principles we're discussing about also here is who should be responsible for the reforms, accountable for lack of delivery on reforms. Of course, it should not be. This should be those that are meant to deliver on reforms. So we are talking in that context about if we talk about the reforms for the national level, it should be for the national level. If we talk about the reforms for the regional level, the regions should not be responsible for lack of the reforms at the national level. Co-financing will be there, yes, because it is not cut and paste of the NGEU. And the differences there are many differences. We talk here also about regions. We're not talking about the regions in the NGEU. We are talking about different management model as well. Also, when it comes to the performance delivery model, there are important changes in the delivery model that differentiated with the NGEU. And it is not only, because there was a question of Niklas Herbst, how are we going to ensure accountability? It goes well beyond, but it will be also present in the reforms part. We will insist on having a proper audit system in place at the national and at the regional level. And before we will be able to really engage, send the European taxpayers' money, we would need to be reassured that there is a credible audit system both at the regional and at the national level. And then also when it comes to the way the money are going to be spent, there will be a moment that we will try to identify the costs and make sure that the European taxpayers did not pay more for investments that was their value. And then the question on the size of cohesion, what is this? It is...
This is the whole budget, and this is for the least developed.
But, okay, so for the least developed regions we have 218 million, I said so before, but this is for...
This is the whole cohesion package.
The whole...
Without agriculture.
And the whole... yeah, which is about the... It was also the question, where is more cohesion on agriculture, so it is still more for the cohesion than for the agriculture. It is 453 billion euros. And for the border regions, they are present in the formula related to for the Justice and Home Affairs funds. That is the place when they are going to be taken into account, the formula which will serve to establish the national allocation that will then be the basis for the national and regional partnership plans. Thank you. And many thanks for your questions. I believe it is only the beginning of the engagement on the basis of this proposal.
Σας ρώτησα για την άμυνα, αλλά δεν απαντήσατε, κύριε Επιτροπέ. Είναι σοβαρό το θέμα. Σας ρώτησα για την άμυνα, αλλά δεν απαντήσατε.
It was about defence, Commissioner. You did not answer, Commissioner. Are you going to get Turkey in through the back door so that they can benefit from defence spending? That is a question, a very important question.
I'm not aware that we are opening any back door in this package, to be double-checked, but I also know how this issue is being addressed in instruments that we have already in place. I don't think that there is any change in policy in that respect. You know it very well. I think also your compatriots know it very well, because quite recently we've been adopting SAFE. And the SAFE, I think, fully took into account the concerns of Greece, the concerns of Cyprus, and I don't know where this comes from, because I'm not aware that there is any change of policy, of the EU policy in that respect.
Υπάρχει το θέμα των κοινών εταιριών, κύριε Επιτροπέ.
So the question was about these common companies.
No. We have to conclude. Let me phrase some conclusions. First of all, Mr. Commissioner, we really are anxious to get the document. As far as I could check, we have not received yet anything online or through the mailboxes. So we should really be beneficiary of these documents as soon as possible. I think it's fair to say, with all due respect for the effort you brought up to be here and to give your presentation and to answer the question, that this was not a good start, neither on content nor on process. On content, because I think was abundantly clear from the remarks made by the colleagues and the questions asked, there are a lot of questions, a lot of things that the Parliament would have preferred to see differently. For example, also the accountability issue, which is a very sensitive one here in the Parliament. But also with respect to the process, I think we can improve a lot. We had a discussion that we had, short discussion on press conferences, etc. So I think in order to bring this exercise to a good end, that there will have to be substantial changes in terms of content, and that also the process for the future, and we still have a long way to go, as you all know, needs to be better than it has been now. Thanks again for being here, and I hope that the comments that have been made by the colleagues are sticking, as they say. Thank you, and enjoy your evening.